Hope it works out well. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yep.
Diane, can you hear me back there? Okay, that's good. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Now, as you know, for about 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to be involved in the study of social media, and I've entitled the series, brief as it is, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly about social media. And so we looked at some things last week relative to social media. What is it? The extent of it, the fact that it's a worldwide, global issue really now. And that there's been a lot of, there's been a lot, it hasn't been a lot, but there is beginning to be a lot of study and reflection in an empirical sense about global media and about social media and its effect in our lives. And so we borrowed some information from different sources last week. We talked about that. You might remember that this study that was done in 2022. And so the result of that was, at the time, about half of the Earth's population is involved in social media. So that means that if your children have a smartphone, if they've got texting, if you have it, if your grandma has it, if anybody's got it, there's some possibilities of being linked around the world. It just depends on who's got your address and who you're willing to just kind of friend, if that's the right expression to use. And so we wanted to look at that, and then today we're going to focus on the positive uses of social media. So I tried to give you enough preparation time, thinking ahead of time for today, last week, to say that we want to talk about the positive things that can come forth from something as large and as just kind of everywhere in our society today. So let's just begin. If you can name a positive effect of social media, somebody just open up and say something.
Positive.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good way that for grandparents to visit with grandchildren that are many miles away, which unfortunately today seems to be the case almost more
All right.
often than not.
So grandmother and grandfather are able to get in contact with grandchildren, and that happens, and all of us know that because all of us are doing that, you know. So yeah, that kind of contact is something.
Social media, Bill, this past week, there have been more announcements at New Antioch for UBS. We have advertised our services. We have posted the songs that we're going to sing online. We've posted news and notes. A lot of things to keep members and those that would be interested involved and know what's going on in our congregation.
Yes. Information. It's all about information and, you know, exchanging information, receiving information. And that's one of the best ways we can do it now. So, in all of those things, once you have a phone, you've got the capability, basically you're advertising for free, you know, and that helps. Bob, you have pointed out some advertising for free that comes over the radio sometimes for
Yes.
us. So, just thinking of social media is another step in that direction, you know. So there are a lot of things that are positive about what we can do in social media. So I need to kind of direct your attention to this. First of all, on the handout that you have, if you look at the front side, you'll see that there is there's a symbol up there, and it's in red. Have you found it? What does the headline say there?
5 positives of social media.
Of social media. Now, just go on down the page and turn it over, and you'll see another red symbol like that. Now, what does it say?
Your brain on social media.
Your brain on social media. Those are two of the studies. I guess some of this is referring to studies. These are two articles, blog posts, whatever else you want to call it, related to social media and the studies that were done by different people involved that wrote these articles. So I've tried to, if you notice that first one on the first page, 5 Positives of Social Media by Matthew Valentine. He's the guy that wrote this particular article that I read. But I want you to note that down at the bottom of the page is a list of the references, right? You see those where it says references? Those are the references that he's researched or used in preparing the article that he wrote. So I wanted you to have those. And the same thing is true with the second thing that we'll be reading from, Your Brain on Social Media. It's a collection too, based on some work that's been done by different folks. And I've listed all the references that we used in that article that I read too. So I just want you to have that. You can think about that. But there are a number of things that we want to talk about from a positive standpoint of social media. And in this first one, question number 1 here, it's really not a question, it's a statement. It says social media helps people strengthen their relationships, creates new connections, and finds social support in tough times. So one study, one of those that was cited in that particular article, says that 93% of adults use Facebook to connect with family. That's what you just talked about a few minutes ago, Bob, and the rest of us out here. It's a great way of allowing us to stay in contact with old friends as well. 87% report using it for that very reason. That's pretty common. That's pretty common practice. I think you didn't really need to read somebody's percentages to convince you that people are using social media that way, but that's a benefit. According to one of these studies, 81% of teens at ages 13 through 17 say that social media makes them feel more connected to the people in their life. And 68% say using it makes them feel supported during tough times. And another study found that 57% of teens, this is ages 13 through 17, say they have made new, lasting friendships online. So that's different than a new, lasting friendship that's an in-person meeting, face-to-face meeting. Somebody you met at school, you know, when you get into your new classes at school, there's always a few new people in there. And so it's just distinguishing that now. The extent to which the online friends are lasting friends is probably going to develop at some point in time, either through an expanded use of social media and so forth, just carrying on conversations and I guess helping each other with different things. Maybe it also leads to actually getting to meet the person and something of that nature. I didn't find any information about a follow-up like that, but perhaps that's the case. However, with each of these sources that I have read, every benefit, nearly every benefit comes with a caution. In this case, the lesson is, as with most things that are tech related, it is not the complete cessation. It's not stopping doing social media completely, but the managing of social media to an ideal use. So the challenge that's being presented here is to be able to manage what you're doing with tech improvements rather than just kind of falling into the process of thinking it's just everything's all tech related. So when they're talking about managing, what does managing suggest to you? Come on, when you want to manage something, what do you do?
Using it correctly.
What? Say it again.
Using it correctly. And something I'd like to say, you know, I know we're talking about positive things. There's a lot of positive things, but I read something one time that said that a lot of people look at Facebook or other forms of social media and they get depressed because they think that their lives are not as good as others.
That's not a positive use.
I know that's not a positive use.
We're
That's a
focusing
negative
on
use.
positive uses.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I have no idea about social media, but I do know maintenance. So maintenance requires planning, scheduling, and objectives to reach certain goals.
Okay. All right, well, let me just throw out an illustration. So let's say you go home today and somebody has donated 1,000 books to your family, and they're all in one room. And your parents decide, or you decide, that we need to make this manageable. what would you do with 1,000 books to make the information in those books manageable for your use?
Sort through them and get rid of the ones that are not
Oh,
immediately
you would
necessary.
organize them. That's what you're saying, right? Now, what would that involve? You
Well,
gotta
then-
look at each book.
In the olden days, when we had regular libraries,
Yeah.
which we still do, you have the card racks and whatnot where you've got a opportunity to go reference a certain material that you need to look at, and that'll tell you where to go to
Uh,
find it. And if you wanna take it with you, you check it out.
All right. So the aim, just like when you walk into the public library, the school library, all the books are on shelves, they're all arranged to a particular order by subject and so forth. You can go to the card catalog file or get on the computer there at the library and search for what you want, and boom, here comes a list of 9 or 10 books that are on the topic that you want to read about. Now you go to the shelf and you get it. That's managing the information. And what they're saying here is no one is trying to say, let's just stop all social media. It's not the complete cessation of social media that we're concerned with. It's the ability to manage it so that it's useful for us. Useful and productive. Useful and productive for us. Number 2, social media can promote better habits by association. And I listed, tried to give you a little bit more about the reference here in regard to the study that was done there. This particular one is Nicholas Christakis. He's a Harvard University sociologist, okay, and physician, James H. Fowler, have done this study together. And they say it relates to the 3 degrees of influence. Social media relates to the 3 degrees of influence in a good way. You can be connected to the 3 degrees of influence. What are the 3 degrees of influence? In your life, mine too, we all have 3 degrees of influence. What do we mean by influence, first of all?
Well, how you conduct your life is an influence on others if it's positive.
All right. Let's say Bob shows up at my house about 6:30 one morning and says, "You want to go hog shooting? I'm going this morning. Got a little lunch packed, why don't you come and go with me?" He's trying to influence me, right? To go with him. Let's go kill some hogs, which I'm sure we would do it if we went out there. Bob, get the job done. Influence is about you, your friends, their friends, and their friends' friends. That's the social set that you move in. The people you know, the people they know, and the other people that they know also know people. Evidently, social media will allow you to get outside of 3 areas of influence. But typically, they found that this was an association kind of thing that can promote better habits by association throughout your circle of friends, the people that you are going to be associated with. Now, they went on to say, of course, this suggests that social media, this is the lesson, that social media is only as positive and beneficial for us as our social circle is positive and uplifting. Now, there's not a negative word in there. It says it's only beneficial as far as our social circle is positive and uplifting. So if your area of influence and your 3 degrees of influence are positive and uplifting, yes, and social media can bear this positive thing in your life, can actually help. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
it makes a lot of
I
sense.
think most of this, we will just wind up saying that, oh, well, that's just common sense. Well, it's common sense, but it's common sense being explored now for trying to understand the effects of social media, positive or negative.
What you're saying is very useful for what we do here and streaming our services, Bible study classes, through Facebook and YouTube, as I understand it.
Yeah,
You can have a seriously positive impact on somebody that has no clue who
Yeah.
you are.
and you know, I think at some point there's going to have to come a more precise definition about social media versus something like streaming a service. Because social media is, we're interacting with people, that is, they're interacting with us when we stream something. But social media, I initially just think of texting, because you're communicating with somebody else, they're communicating with you, you're discussing something, whatever the case may be. So I don't know, right now, I guess you could include all of that now under the broad term of social media.
Well, Chris
Streaming
does.
and other things.
Chris does something, and, he worked for the University of Alabama, and I suppose that's all online. And without that capability, his
Yeah.
studies for those folks couldn't reach it.
Yeah. Now, if they're taking this math class, this is social media, and I wonder if they think that's social media or if they think it's school.
I don't know, you had to ask Chris.
Yeah, I understand. Number 3, social media helps introverted or socially anxious personalities connect in a safe environment. Well, I think that's probably a statement you would agree with. It's common sense. If someone has anxieties, personalities that are, I don't know, how would you say shy, introverted, that's what introverted means. You can understand how, okay, social media can help somebody connect with other people in a little easier way. Why would that be?
Not having to deal with them face to face.
Say it again, James?
You're not having to deal with them face to face.
Not having to deal with something face to face.
Not having to, yeah. Not having to deal with them face to face.
Right. And there's a degree of anonymity, at least initially. So you can feel safe, in contacting, if you're contacting somebody to try to learn something. This is a person that, let's say, has been cited as a source you could use in some homework assignment that you've got to do. And so you can contact that person by social media, and you're not worried about how do I start this conversation. They don't know me, I don't really know them. But you can text that person with the result of the homework assignment. At school, they said you might could help me with this. And so there you have a contact made that can help you. And then, a lot of people may just walk up to that particular person and say, I'll do it face to face, but not everybody does that. So the thing about this is, if this is what social media accomplishes for somebody, what is it that it's not helping? If this is helping me because I'm introverted and I don't want to do face-to-face conversations, what is my reliance now on this will grow? What is that not helping me with?
With their actual social skills.
Yeah. Again, it's common sense, but that's one of the findings, related to some of these things.
One of the things that I have always got me is these young people, they have a whole lot rather text somebody than call them and talk to them on the phone. If you're talking to somebody on the phone, you can hear little things in their voice that you don't get out of a text message or an email. And if I'm talking to you face to face, if I say something that offends you, you're going to kind of flinch or do something that indicates that, hey, I didn't like what you said, or I don't agree with it, but you don't get that out of a text message.
Yeah.
Unless that person comes back and says, I don't agree with what you said, or you offended me. And it to me, the pluses are probably better than the minuses, but it's just not the same as face-to-face communication.
No, it's not the same. But it's here to stay. Number 4, social media reduces stigmas around mental illness, disease, and sexuality. Now, that's a statement that's made by after they did the research. Why? I'm asking a question. They didn't ask this question in the research that was done. I'm just asking the question, why is that the case? Why does social media reduce a stigma about mental illness or disease or sexuality?
People are probably more likely to talk about it on social media than they are, like I said, face to face.
Maybe that's the reason why. Again, I think it's the fact that when you initially are involved in social media, there's that degree of anonymity. There's no face-to-face risk, if I can just put it that way. So you feel comfortable, to some extent, to read whatever has been now offered through social media concerning different stigmas about mental illness, disease, and sexuality. In the study that was actually done, they pointed out how that when celebrities get involved in talking about an illness that they have or a disease that they come down with that's life-threatening and going to be a challenge all their lives, and they deal with this. When celebrities do that, and they mentioned Dwayne The Rock, if you happen to know who Dwayne The Rock is, somebody else named Demi Lovato, how that when they opened up in a social media platform about this illness that they acquired or this disease that they're fighting, that it encourages other people that might be facing some of the same things, particularly when it's a situation that might be a mental illness. There's a stigma about mental illness that, we would sometimes kind of want to put everything that's related to emotional and psychic kind of issues in life as the same thing as what would truly be defined as an insane person. That's far reach.
I got a question.
Okay. Maybe somebody here will have an answer.
I don't know. The statement says social media reduces stigmas around these 3 areas. Well, if they're gonna say a statement like that, what direction is the stigma around mental illness gonna be? Is it gonna be something that would help somebody improve that has a mental illness, or is it gonna give you the downside of mental illnesses? The stigma is not defined here. It's just a broad statement to me.
Well, it's really as though there is already a stigma associated with mental illness.
And what would that stigma be?
I was kind of hinting at it a moment ago, that the tendency is to just kind of go overboard. Everybody that has to take medication for a particular emotional situation, they're really on the path to being crazy. And that's not the case. I think we've all known some people that when they observe their medication, do quite well. Even though they've been diagnosed with,
Depression. Schizophrenia.
Maybe that one. Maybe schizophrenia, maybe. When you have the opposites, when everything is glorious and glorious and glorious, and all of a sudden nothing is worth life. Bipolar disease. You ever know anybody with bipolar disease? Did you think that they were a walking nutcase?
Are you having to deal with them? Yes. Because you didn't know from one day or to the next how that they were going to happen.
Well, suppose you know someone and they take their medication and they do well. Can that happen?
Yes.
Would y'all like me to name one or two that you know? That I know anyway.
I think we already know.
Did they do well? They did very well.
Yes.
We never followed, and at least I never followed, some kind of extreme behavior, you know, from that. But that was contingent on, yeah, keeping up with their medicine, taking it regularly. So the fact that you could talk about that and explore that with somebody else might relieve some anxiety for you if you know other people are handling this pretty well. I think that's the thing that gets relieved. That's the stigma that is lessened. Now, I already told you now, every article that I read comes with, here's a good result, and then they tell you, here comes the cautionary statement next. Why? Because it's really like a two-edged sword. Anybody got a two-edged sword?
Yes.
A real one? I mean, a physical sword?
Well, no, it's a big knife.
It's a big knife, huh? All right, got a big knife? It's got edge on both sides?
Yes,
What happens if you go this way
it could.
and if you go that way?
It could.
So it's,
Coming in and
social
going.
media can be something like that. We'll talk about that, next week when we talk about the negatives. But I'm trying to illustrate that there are some positives. And that, and it's here to stay. What we want to do is learn how to manage social media and particularly, technological improvements in life so that we're managing our use of them in a good way. Number 5 here, organized social media programs help students to do better in school and improve attendance. It's an actual study that was done. In that study, and I've given you the title of it there, but more than half of the students use social media to discuss school assignments. And it's the discussion of school assignments that promoted the better attendance. Would that make sense to you? Well, let's think about it a minute. So you're in 6th grade and you got an assignment. Let's say it's a history class. You got an assignment and you're a little fuzzy about just what you're supposed to do when you read through all this. But your good friend that lives next door is also in that history class, and so you can buddy up over there and you talk with that person about it, and they say, oh yeah, here's what he's talking about. You got to read chapter, whatever it is, 8, and what he wants you to do, he wants you to be able to discuss, or at least write down, what were the 3 or 4 important things that happened in that chapter that were the result of the historical occurrence that did occur. If it happens to be a chapter about a battle, can you tell him the 2 or 3 things that made the side that won the battle able to win? Oh, I now get it. So I'm looking to see about this battle, and he wants to know if I read enough that I can understand how it was that side A was able to defeat side B. Yeah, that's it. Okay, great. So now you and your buddy next door have this common interest together. And of course, he lives next door, so it's no problem for you to communicate with him. But what if this fella doesn't live next door? What if he lives across town? And what if you don't really know him that well? But you tap into him through social media, and you float that same question, and he comes back and explains all of this. So that does a couple of things. It helps you with your assignment that you got to do. But also, there's a little bit of positive reinforcement that you get from this other person that you got through texting or social media use anyway. You got it, and you have a contact. And probably when you do get back to school, you're both in the same classroom, even if you haven't ever introduced yourself to him before, you might be looking to talk to him.
Bill?
Yes, sir.
It goes, in today's world, it goes further than that. I am required use a social media platform that most people in here probably haven't heard of. It's called Virtue Owls.
Virtue Owl?
VIRTUOWL. Virtue Owl. It's a social media platform, but instead of connecting students to students, it connects students to a teacher. It keeps students from using your personal Facebook page or personal X account or whatever. It is a social media account to connect students with teachers. So if I have a student at Troy and they say, look, I'm having trouble with assessing a difference quotient, I can get back in touch with them almost immediately and explain, look, this is nothing in the world that's slow, it's rise overrun, do it like this, blah, blah, blah. And I can help that person with that moment of frustration, where if they hit that wall and they're frustrated, their first reaction might be to just go, oh, I'm not gonna do this, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, they have that almost instant way of, I guess, reaching out to the instructor and getting help or asking a question. So it goes beyond just that. How do I put it? It enhances that personal feeling that you would have, even if you're not in a brick and mortar classroom, that you might have between teacher and student. It enhances that relationship and motivates the student to maybe dig a little bit deeper, work a little bit harder, and it's a really good thing, as you're talking about, to promote inclusion of students.
Yeah. And in the case that you're citing, it's almost instant. I mean, it's right now.
I get a bing, and it's, you know, it's a student saying, look, you know, could you do this?
Yeah. So yeah, I get that too. The lesson concerning freshmen in college was that they use social media to integrate themselves in their new school relationship, build friendships, and that activity on social media even helps reduce the risk of dropping out. Because if you're building friendships, you're in a new school environment, you're talking probably to people that are also going to be in some of your classes. I mean, you can just kind of see it. You get an answer to a dilemma, you get a little instant gratification about something. It reaffirms or helps to cement this kind of possibility of a relationship of some kind to explore. All right, let's talk about your brain and social media for just a few minutes. And that's all we've got, just a few. So the consensus on the study in this was that social platforms can help build needed connection, and here's the quote, with like-minded individuals. As I've already told you a couple of times, every positive benefit that comes from social media, there is a cautionary statement that can go the other way. That's why they're using the term like-minded. So you can find the people that are like-minded with you through your use of social media. And when you do, it will increase feelings, relationship, okay, a little bonding together of belonging, and introduce somebody perhaps even to a diverse way of thinking about something, because you've got a relationship where you can discuss it. And maybe the guy that's reading the article in history, he's taking a little bit of a different point of view than you would have, and he's discussing it with you through texting or through a form of social media. You know, maybe he's put out a YouTube, you're looking at it that way. But you can listen, and you can make up your own mind, you see. So that's a benefit. Number 7 there, was so common sense, I didn't decide to try to write a lesson per se about what do we mean here. But social media has the potential to bring empowerment to someone's ability to construct a personal identity. This can increase feelings of autonomy and personal control and independence. Because you're in charge.
And self-esteem.
Yeah, and self-esteem. That was the first buzzer. Number 8 here. Social media can help people who struggle with social anxiety to feel part of a greater whole. Here comes the thing that you underline. Without any immediate stressors experienced by an in-person visit. What is an in-person visit?
Face to face.
It's face to face. And doing things face to face. If you've got a question that you want to ask, let's say Chris, the teacher, but whoever it is that wants to ask Chris has this, he gets nervous about it because he knows that Chris is, way up here in terms of math. This fellow's down here. And so it's all that. And I get nervous and I stumble in my words and I'm kind of sweating when I'm trying to ask this question. If you don't have to deal with that, you can just type out the question and get an answer. Well, then you get kind of a positive reinforcement here without the immediate stressors that come from having an in-person visit. How many of you have ever gone to a doctor's office? Come on.
If I go.
How many of you got in the waiting room and you knew you were going to have to wait for a while? What did you do?
Pull out our phone.
While you're waiting, well, what'd you do before you had phones?
Well, I have a conversation with somebody in there if they're
All
in there
right,
waiting.
you talk with somebody.
Yeah,
All right, and maybe you don't want to talk with somebody. What else will you do in that waiting room?
pick up a magazine.
That's right. That's what we did, right? Now we got a phone. And so the people, there are 10 people in the waiting room, and 10 of them are on their phone. What are they doing? They're doing something with social media. Number 9, the truth is, we are still learning about the specific long-term effects of social media usage on the brain. However, it is obvious our growing reliance on social platforms for connection and identity creation is absolutely impacting the part of our brains that engage with reward pathways, memory creation, processes, decision-making, emotional awareness, and attention. Because when your brain reacts in certain ways when you are pleased by something. They used to say that's why you need to get in the habit of smiling, because every time you smile, it sends a little happy to your brain and keep you in a happy state of being. All right, well, it's about time for the next buzzer. These were some of the positive effects of social media and uses. I would say the major take-home lesson about it all is that nobody is saying, well, we just got to stop using social media, but we need to learn how to manage it so that we are in control. Okay, anybody else got a thought? So next week, what do we talk about? Social media. What are we going to talk about next week?
Negatives.
All the negatives that can happen because of social media. And there are some. So we'll talk about that next week. Appreciate your help this morning. Thank you very much.